So for a while now, I've been meaning to kind of open up a YouTube account and put up some videos there because, I've written some things online for my personal side and things, but I thought to really connect with people, these days you have to do video. It's just a completely different way to connect with people. I think it's just closer to being human, having human connection. So that's what I'm doing, giving it a try. And I'm on a walk here, so I might get interrupted or there might be some noise, but it's still early in the morning. Anyway, I had these ideas that this would be this, one of these well-curated YouTube channels with the funny graphics and maybe something scripted. Sorry, this isn't. But chasing that, I ended up just never doing it. So I'm leaning in the direction of actually doing it. Anyway, my goal is still to not make this too boring, and to make this actually something that people would want to listen to and enjoy. So with that aside, I want to just go into something that I think is worth sharing, which is this last December, I went on vacation. I was off work for like a solid month. It was great. And I came back really happy. But it wasn't the kind of happy where when you go on vacation, you have a good time and then you come back and it was just great to be on vacation. There was something more than that. And I would say it was almost something like, I don't have a better word to use, so I'm just going to say spiritual. And I'm an atheist. This is not even like a story about finding Jesus or something. I think it just has everything to do with the mind. But here's what happened. I just came back with this just huge epiphany with little baby epiphanies under it. And I came back thinking, my God, this is how I want to be the rest of my life. Not that I expect myself to just be happy the rest of my life or be on vacation the rest of my life. It's that there was just something that I finally understood about being. And I'm like, man, this is what I've been missing all my life. This is the answer to so many questions. It solves so many problems. And I'll go into that, but I'll tell you a bit about what I experienced, which is that, number one, I've been diagnosed with ADHD since I was a kid, and it's something that I always struggled with. And the way that I had managed the struggle was, as many people with ADHD do, is they have all these systems and techniques and accommodations. In my case, I would kind of, summarize all of that as saying that I delegated things that I could not do well to a system that could. In other words, a computer. If I found that I couldn't keep track of things, projects at work or something, well, a computer sure could. It does it actually perfectly. It has perfect memory. So, there's this idea of second brain out there, the second brain system, and I'm not the inventor of it by any means, but I thought, okay, so that's the way to do it. And I did that for a while, but I'd never felt like I just felt like I was sort of limping along. And when I came back in January after this experience, if my ADHD symptoms weren't alleviated completely, they were alleviated quite a bit. All of a sudden, I didn't just feel like I was listening to people and hearing them and paying attention to them. I felt like when someone spoke, I could just give my entire self to them, that time stood still, that I could camp out in their minds and just be with them, with everything that they were saying. I was also afraid that going back to work, that, this fantasy was going to crash back into reality. That I would come back from this this state of mind. And I should say, no, I wasn't doing any drugs or anything. This is not what this is about. This was just an all-natural experience. But I would come back from this, and that it would just come crashing down when I got back to work. And that isn't what happened, actually. I actually realized that I was able to significantly lighten my grip on all these systems I'd set up, to-do lists and things like that. Not completely release them. But it was due to the fact that I came back with this realization that work is not the work is the people. Granted, I'm a program manager, so that's also advice that's kind of specific to my role. And it was like all this information and tracking and detailed stuff that I was trying to fit into these pieces of software and things were instead just part of this connectivity between people. That I didn't have to try to remember so many things, because as long as I just maintained this connectedness with people, that I made space, that I left air, that it would be filled with the goings on of people. It's hard to explain, but I wish I had a nice juicy example to give at this moment, but I guess it's that I could go into a meeting and know what I needed to say, understand what was going on, and kind of be in the right place, because projects are an illusion. There are no projects. There's no such thing as a project. It's this shared illusion we all have, and what it actually is a bunch of people who care or don't care about something. Well, who care about something. If they don't care, there truly is no project. But there's so much more depth to go into than that I don't think I'm going to go into right now. But that would be sort of the first page of that realization. And anyway, that was just sort of like one sliver of this whole epiphany I had. But the entire tree, if you will, was me coming back and saying, oh my God, I need to be present. I need to be in the moment. I need to be now, here and now. Again, not a new idea that I'm bringing to the world, but this was just my personal experience. And what happened in December was not, I went to New York City, but it wasn't about New York City. In fact, most of the time I was in New York, for reasons I won't go into now. My waking hours were spent overnight. So I was wandering around Manhattan 3 a.m, 4 a.m. And despite that saying that the city never sleeps, it does. Things are shut down. People have gone home from the nightclubs and so on. And it does shut down. You're walking around New York, everything's closed except for delis, basically. There are very few exceptions, especially after the pandemic. A lot of the 24-hour establishments have closed down. And I was doing this for a while, and after a while of doing this, I was just kind of enjoying. I used to live in New York City, so I was enjoying just being there so much that eventually I just kept my phone away, and I didn't look at my phone. I was just enjoying being present. And there was something about that just got me in this moment. So that was December. It's about mid-February now. I'm going to advance this conversation just a bit. I'm also just realizing the park is still closed that I was walking to. So, close. But I came back with this urge to understand what was all that? How do I... And I came back and I still had this kind of energy, this energy of presence. Even when I came back to work, I was felt so happy about who I was at work. And the clarity of thought that I had. I mean, it's like I just transformed into this other person. I could think clearly. I could listen to people. I could so clearly see what was important and what wasn't. And things that seemed like, every day walking into this huge storm cloud of things that I needed to do and just frantically getting through them. I could just see the little twinkly lights of what was meaningful and what to just put my focus on. And I would just pick one of those and just be with it and just work on that. And I was happy. People around me were happy. And so I was able to prolong this after getting back, for a little while. And since then, I've started to slip away from it. And I was kind of, I knew that was going to happen. I was glad that it did. Because knowing that would happen, I thought, okay, so this is part of it, right? This is just like another chapter where now I can really understand how this works by testing it against reality and seeing what happens when I slip away from it. So what that meant was I would kind of, slip. I wouldn't say I'd slip out of the trance. I would say I'd slipped into the trance. The sensation that I came back with was like getting out of a decades-long trance. And so slipping back into the trance, I could, get these moments aside where, a meeting would be canceled or something. And then I could just sit with it and kind of think, okay, what is this? What's going on? So like, how do I feel about me going from A to B, going from the good state to the bad state, to keep it simple? And it's been a while, and I've been kind of collecting this and thinking about it and trying to piece it back together, because I wanted to understand, how do I bottle this up? How do I refill the bottle so I can pour it out again as needed? How do I come back to this center line and not stray too far? Just, wait for a transformative trip to happen again. And what I think what I realized from that was that everything I was trying to do to solve things was centered around being additive. Solve things meaning like, your wellness, your wellness, or like these words that end with hacking, like growth hacking and so on. Self-help category stuff. It was always additive. It's like, maybe I should start eating this thing. Maybe I should start doing this thing in the morning, and I should. It was always just something else being included that wasn't there before. I'm not going to knock those things. I love my morning routine. That was an additive thing that I swear by. But that was the only mode I was in. I was just stuck in that mode of additive, add something, do something, include something else. And what I was missing from this was the exclusion. And that's basically what happened in December. Is I got to spend so much time doing nothing. I wasn't like lying on a beach or anything. I wasn't even getting good sleep. I was eating well. I was exercising, which is part of my baseline. I just try to always do that. But it just kept like booming in me that is what is causing this state of mind. It's just leaving space, open space, just to let my thoughts be processed, let my emotions be processed. Or even if I didn't want to be with my thoughts, it was tuning into the fact that at any point in time, at anywhere in the world, anywhere you are, there's always just so much richness around us that if we tap into it and we notice it and we bring our expectations down and the slowness of everything to a standstill enough to just appreciate the here and the now, that this was this sweet spot that I was in all the time. And then I started to listen. So then I got like really, spiritual and stuff. And I started listening to Ram Dass after a friend had sent me some things. And honestly, at first I thought, I don't know if I'm gonna like this guy because, I'm a scientist. I think that things need to be proven and all of that. And, I'm just, when people start talking about new agey things and energy, talking about energy very differently from what it actually is in the physical sense, it just seems like bullshit. And what I liked about him is that I think he's definitely, part of that to some degree. He's certainly, you can look him up, but he talks about karmic this and that and the astral plane and such. But most of what he's saying isn't. It's just it's very practical. But in any case, I was listening to this lecture on being here and now that I highly recommend. And he was talking about how he was doing a meditation and he allowed himself 2 M&Ms per day. And he had himself just consume these M&Ms just so slowly. Takes the first M&M and he's just first he's admiring it. He's admiring it, and eventually he puts it in his mouth and he's just enjoying texture and feeling and whatnot, and lets it melt in his mouth. And by the time he finished the second M&M, he said, I couldn't even think about M&Ms anymore. I was just so full. Yet on the average day, when he wasn't in this meditative state, you could just grab a handful of M&Ms and just eat them like no big deal. So I had listened to that, and I was at a hotel in Soho at the time, and I was thinking about that, and it was breakfast, so I went down in the lobby. They had a little mini bodega they had a chia seed pudding at the bodega for sale. So I grabbed one of those and paid for it, and then I went upstairs and ate it with a spoon. And maybe halfway through it, then I realized something that has been sticking with me, and it's served as this metaphor, a lesson or something that I keep taking out, which is halfway through it, I realized that my attention on every single bite was always on the bites that were remaining in the container, never on the bite that was in my mouth that I could be enjoying, the one that I was actually tasting. And this is after going down to the bodega and just being very careful about what I chose on the shelf. I was thinking of future Adam and making sure that my choices now were just going to be the best choices for his future enjoyment, for the future state. That, everything weighed on what I was doing now and the selection that I made. And then future Adam is just doing the same thing. He's thinking about, just the next thing. Never enjoying the bite that was already in my mouth. And that was just an aha moment for me, because I realized I wasn't just this way with pudding cups. I was this way with everything. That everything was just constantly in motion. I'm always thinking about what is next, never what is now. I'm always... And I like the way that Ram Dass put this, mimicking people talking. He was saying, it's always out there somewhere. It's always someplace else or something else. It's out there somewhere. When people say, hey, do you want to go catch the latest, let's go do this thing. Do you want to go out and, have you seen this? How about we all go? It's always out there somewhere. And this was just what struck me, and I took it back, and it caused all these other smaller realizations. So what I did was I got on the plane back home, and I think it's 5.5 hours flying home, and I thought, why don't I just write a 1-pager to myself? All these thoughts that I've been having, it's way more than I'm putting in this video. I just write 2 sentences about each, just so I can refer to that 1-pager and just take it out and then, pour it out of the bottle again. And so I did that, and I did, pour things out of the bottle, and it has been helpful. I've been in my own journal, just expanding on those thoughts. And, but then what happened was remarkable, which is I finished the 1-pager, and we're probably just an hour into the flight, and I was reflecting on how Ram Dass was saying, you can always just appreciate your breath. It's not like you're going to leave your breath in your other pair of pants. It's always with you, and that there's so much richness around us. And so I sat on the flight. I put away, I had a book, I had some other electronics. I just put everything away, and I just sat there, like with my hands in my lap, just doing nothing. And I did that for the entirety of the remainder of the flight. So this is like 4 hours, 4.5 hours. And I just sat there peacefully, and I would look around. And the inside of a plane isn't very zen, but I mean, you could just pick any kind of speck of dust and wonder where it came from. If one point in time, and at one point in time, it was another planet crashing to Earth. This was one of its fragments is in this speck of dust. I mean, there's just, if you really tune into things, you can appreciate the richness of it. No new agey, spiritual, supernatural things required. So I did that, and then time was passing. I wasn't even looking at my watch. I wasn't checking to see, and this is actually key, is that I was in a state where I wasn't thinking about how much of the time I was using up. I was just there. And then eventually at one moment we landed. And so we landed, and I was like, oh yeah, the flight is over. How about that? And that was it. And when I got back home, I tried to give myself more of those, not 4.5 hour sessions, but I actually just started meditating regularly and just really trying to prolong this feeling. And I'm still just thinking about how did I get there? Because once I'm already there, prolonging it is one thing, but when you lose it, how do you get back to it? Sort of looping over myself right now, but there were a few things that came to mind, which is physically separating yourself from where you're not in that state of mind is really helpful. I don't know if it's absolutely necessary, but it almost is. And the other thing was that with all this talk about being here and now, I always tell people, don't confuse a plan with an outcome. And in some ways, that's not the how you get there, it's the what you need to be. Maybe that's debatable. And the way I got out of that was that I realized that it's about being fast, being slow, and being still. That when I get back into work, when I'm at work and I'm going between meetings, eventually it's going to speed me up because I can't be in the now. I need to be in the future. I need to be thinking about what's in the corner. I need to be setting up I'm a project manager, so that's what we do. You have to really be in the future tense, not just the present tense. Otherwise, you're just tracking things. And doing that all the time and being in meetings and saying, okay, I'm in a meeting now, but there's only 10 minutes left, so I need to say what I need to say in 10 minutes so that I can get to the next meeting on time. And it basically just untrains you. It puts you back into the state where you're always thinking about, okay, the next thing. Never mind what's right now. I need to just finish what's right now. Never mind, I bought this book that I wanted because I would enjoy being in the book reading it. I'm trying to, how much of this book do I have left? I need to finish it so that I can read the next book that I'm going to enjoy. It's always the next thing. So it untrains you from this state of mind. And I realize that when it untrains you, what it does is it speeds you up. You come home, and even when you say, okay, I'm going to close my laptop, I'm going to turn off my phone, there's this feeling, it's like in your veins, it's in your mind that you're still moving. Like I would be just doing something inconsequential, like taking a clean pair of socks from the laundry over to another room, and I'm just rushing it. I'm like, why am I rushing? I've got plenty of time. It's a short distance. I can just relax and take this little short walk to move a pair of socks. There's this just motion that stays in you. And so I realized that when you're trying to get to stillness, what you need is the slowness. You have to introduce something that slows you down. And for me, that was writing literally with pen in hand in my journal. slows me down. I have to concentrate. And I try to write with nice handwriting, so I'm slowly making the shapes. I can't write as fast as I'm thinking what I'm writing, like I can do almost when I'm typing. It's this slowing down behavior where you can just slow things down and not take your phone on a walk with you. These sorts of things that you can then enter into this state of stillness. So yeah, that's my blab. So I always figure you never have to worry about the first video. No one's going to see it. Or if they do, it's because, you managed to make a popular channel and everybody goes back to see how much you sucked at the beginning. So, that's that one. The more of these I make, the pressure is on to make them not suck as much.